The engines hummed softly under the blanket of clouds at 30,000 feet. Flight 742 to Chicago glided smoothly through the night sky, its passengers lulled into quiet comfort by the dim lights and steady hum. In the cockpit, Captain Laura Hayes and her co-pilot, Lieutenant Erin Mitchell, both among the few female pilots to have served in the Air Force before joining commercial aviation, shared a quick laugh over a story from their days in service. Everything was routine until it wasn't. It started with a faint buzz in Laura's ears, then a sudden wave of dizziness. Erin's hand trembled on the throttle as her vision blurred. "Laura, do you feel that?" she muttered. Laura turned her head, blinking rapidly. "Yeah, I don't." Her words slurred, and before she could finish, her body went limp. Erin gasped, clutching the control yoke, but her strength faded fast. Within seconds, both women were unconscious, their breathing shallow. The plane, now on autopilot, continued straight ahead, thousands of feet above the clouds, with nearly 200 lives depending on two pilots who had suddenly blacked out. Back in economy class, Mark Sullivan, a single dad janitor returning home with his teenage daughter Lily after visiting his late wife's grave, stirred from a light nap. Lily leaned against his shoulder, earbuds in, the faint sound of music leaking through. Mark was a quiet man in his 40s, calloused hands, tired eyes, a worn flannel shirt. The kind of man nobody noticed except Lily. A sudden jolt shook the plane, not violent but wrong. The hum changed pitch, and the fastened seatbelt, a light blinked on. A flight attendant, Jessica, rushed down the aisle, confusion etched across her face. "Is everything okay?" A passenger called out. Jessica tried to smile, but her voice wavered. "Please remain seated, sir." Then another sound, an alarm from the cockpit. A shrill tone that made passengers turn their heads in alarm. Jessica's face drained of color. She sprinted toward the cockpit door and knocked. "Captain Hayes?" No answer. "Captain Hayes, are you all right?" Panic spread through the cabin like wildfire. Mark looked at Lily. "Stay here, sweetheart." He stood, his 6-foot frame straightening for the first time in hours. He'd spent most of his adult life cleaning floors no one else wanted to walk on, patching broken pipes, and staying invisible. But something in his gut, the same instinct that had kept his daughter safe all these years, told him he couldn't stay still. He made his way up the aisle. Jessica blocked him. "Sir, please sit down." Mark's voice was calm but firm. "Your pilots aren't responding, are they?" She hesitated, biting her lip. "They're not answering the door, and I can't unlock it." "Then you've got a bigger problem than a passenger standing up." She blinked, uncertain. Mark leaned in slightly, opened the emergency panel near the galley. "There's a manual override if you use a certain combination. The old Boeing models had it." Her eyes widened. "How do you know that?" He looked her dead in the eye. "Just trust me." Jessica hesitated, then rushed to the panel. Mark's hands moved with quiet confidence, guiding her. Within moments, the cockpit door unlocked with a soft click. They entered and froze. Both pilots were slumped in their seats, motionless, oxygen masks dangling uselessly. The autopilot light blinked steadily, but an altitude warning flashed red across the screen. "Oh my God," Jessica whispered. They're alive," Mark said quickly, checking pulses, but barely, probably hypoxia. He reached up and activated the emergency oxygen flow for both pilots, lowering the cabin altitude manually. "They'll come to if we stabilize pressure." Jessica stared at him. "You know how to do that." Mark's jaw tightened. "Used to." He slid into the captain's seat, his hands gripping the controls like they were old friends. His reflection in the windshield looked out of place. A janitor in a flannel shirt, seated where only trained captains belonged. But when he adjusted the yoke and trimmed the pitch, his movements were sure, deliberate. "Tower, this is Flight 742. He said into the mic, his voice steady, declaring emergency, both pilots incapacitated, manual control engaged. Static answered him, then a voice crackled through. "Flight 742, identify yourself. Who's speaking?" "This is temporary command," Mark replied. "Mark Sullivan, I need a priority vector to nearest airport, 200 souls on board." There was silence, then, "Copy that. Flight 742, are you a pilot, Mr. Sullivan? He hesitated, not officially. In the cabin, Lily peeked from her seat, sensing something was wrong. Jessica reassured the passengers with a practiced calm, though her hands trembled behind her back. Mark's mind was locked in. The instruments blurred together like pieces of a puzzle he'd once known by heart. 20 years ago, before the economy crashed, before his wife's illness, before he took night shifts cleaning hangars, he'd been one of the youngest Air Force flight technicians on record, certified on multiple aircraft, including the very model he was now flying. He'd given it all up to raise Lily after cancer took his wife. The skies had been his life once, but he'd chosen family over flight. Now the sky had come back for him. Flight 742, you're drifting off course. Turn heading 090, came the ATC voice. Roger that, Mark said, his fingers dancing across the controls. He leveled the wings, corrected the drift, and began a slow descent. Below them, the city lights glittered faintly through the clouds. The plane's cabin, once buzzing with fear, had quieted. Lily's wide eyes met his through the open cockpit door. She mouthed, "Dad." He smiled faintly. "It's okay, sweetheart. We're going home." The autopilot disengaged with a click. The plane dipped slightly, and the pressure equalized. Behind him, Captain Hayes stirred, coughing. Her hand went to her oxygen mask, eyes fluttering open. "WH, what's happening?" She managed. "Altitude issue. Hypoxia. You'll be okay," Mark said, adjusting a dial. "You were out cold." She blinked in confusion. Who are you?" "Just a janitor trying to get us down safe." Her eyes widened when she saw the instruments. Everything was stable, altitude steady, descent smooth, vector locked. He was flying like a professional. "Tower, this is Captain Hayes," she said weakly into her headset, regaining consciousness. "A passenger, Mr. Sullivan, took control. He saved us." The tower replied, "Copy that, Captain. You're clear to land runway 27, right. And tell Mr. Sullivan that the world's watching." The ground grew closer, runway lights stretching like a landing strip of stars. Mark's knuckles whitened as he guided the plane down, flaps full, gear down. He muttered. Laura, regaining strength, followed his commands instinctively. They worked in silent sync, like two pilots who'd flown together for years. The wheels kissed the runway with a gentle screech. The cabin erupted in cheers and sobs. Mark exhaled, his hands trembling for the first time since it began. The plane slowed to a stop. Emergency crews rushed forward. Laura turned to him, still breathless. You just saved 200 people. How did you?" Mark stood, looking out the window at the flashing lights. "Once upon a time," he said softly, "I was supposed to be flying planes like this. Life had other plans." Lily ran into the cockpit, throwing her arms around him. "Dad, you were amazing." He hugged her tight, eyes glistening. "I just did what needed to be done, kiddo." Reporters were already gathering on the tarmac as the passengers disembarked. Cameras flashed, questions shouted, but Mark didn't stop. He just smiled politely and guided Lily through the crowd. One reporter caught up to him. "Sir, is it true you're not a pilot?" Mark paused. "Not anymore." Laura appeared beside him, still in uniform. "For what it's worth," she said, extending her hand, "I'd fly with you any day, janitor or not." He shook it, modestly. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that again." As he and Lily disappeared into the terminal lights, the control tower replayed the final moments of the emergency transmission. A man's calm voice, steady under pressure, saying, "Just a janitor trying to get us home." The world would call him a hero, but to Mark Sullivan, he was just a father doing what fathers do, keeping his daughter safe, even 30 0 feet above the world he once left behind.